Let's talk about the books I read in May. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. Hi, my name is Liz and today we're gonna be doing my May reading wrap up. So I'm gonna be talking about all the books I read in May. Obviously, I truly had such a great month, especially when it came to the books that I was reading. I was able to finally hit more of my spring TBR because that is one thing that I was lacking big time. Going into the month of May, I think I either read 1 or 0 books from my spring TBR. So I knew I had some catching up to do. And that is why I planned on doing a reading vlog at the beginning of the month so I could hit some of those spring TBR books. And also I do feel like towards the end of the month I've been trying to put more of an effort in as well. There were a few books that were arcs that I was really excited to get to, and yeah, some just really hyped up books that I was really curious about. So clearly I needed to read them and give my own opinion on them. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's video. I'm going to flip through my reading journal. I feel like it's been so long. Like this month has felt really long for some unknown reason, and I am forgetting what I rated each of these books. Yeah, I'm just not very organized at the moment. Starting off the month, like I said, I did a reading vlog, so I went ahead and started reading some different books that were on my spring TBR. The first book that I read was Pickup by Nora Dalia. This is also in my summer recommendations video. If you are interested in some in-depth thoughts and feelings and opinions, you can go ahead and watch that reading vlog. I'm not going to go in super depth, but I'm going to share my rating and also what the book is about. I ended up rating this book 3 stars. This story follows a single mom and a single dad. The mom, she has been divorced for a few years, and the dad, he is recently divorced. Like within a year he got divorced, and both of them are just kind of trying to do their best when it comes to parenting. Right from the very beginning of this book, they both butt heads a lot whenever it comes to their children. Both their kids go to the same exact school, so they see each other a lot at drop off, and that is when some of this headbutting happens. Bad first impression, getting off on the wrong foot, that kind of thing. Both characters end up getting this really awesome work opportunity to go to this really tropical, beautiful island and stay there for, I want to say like close to a week, and they are filming and doing this whole like video production thing. So it's a lot of close proximity and trying to get over those bad first impressions. You're also getting a third POV as well that is another parent at the school, so you're getting kind of like an outsider perspective as well. I enjoyed this book for what it was. I do think it'd be a really great summary book to read about. I only gave 3 stars obviously, but I still would recommend it. I do think it was still a fun read, and I did find myself laughing at different parts in this book. The next book I read this month was Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling. This is another book that I read in that reading vlog, so if you're interested in more in-depth reviews and thoughts and opinions, go ahead and watch that reading vlog. This one I ended up rating 3.75 stars. I'm just gonna say right off the bat, I ate this book up, and I know I only gave it 3.75 stars. There were a few reasons, but I felt like it was just a lot of banter and a lot of stuff didn't happen. Like it felt very stagnant in some areas. I still really loved the banter. I eat that up. Trust me, I'm a big romantasy fan, but I just need some more things happening within the plot. I also felt like the ending was either a little rushed or just didn't make sense fully. I will be reading the second book, which I believe comes out this summer. This story follows a girl who was a princess, and she, when she was born, was bonded to 5 different dragons. These dragons were kind of like her protectors, her friends, and the king didn't necessarily like that. At one point he tries to hit her and one of her dragons bites his pinky off or something like that, and she becomes a prisoner, and her dragons also. Eventually she is able to escape, and she is kind of like almost exiled in a way, and she starts her own kind of community of people. She ends up meeting a commander of a nearby kingdom, and he wants to ally with her, work with her to free her dragons and also take her father off the throne. So they kind of have like a common enemy. It's a very mutually beneficial arrangement. And the last book that I read in that reading vlog was The Guest by B.A. Paris. I ended up rating this book 3 stars, and I also read this one in that same reading vlog as well. The story follows a married couple who just got home from a vacation. When they get home, they discover one of their close friends has been living in their house while they've been gone and is kind of crossing a lot of boundaries. They soon realize though that she just left her husband, who had an affair and apparently has a child. It turns into this whole dramatic thing where they're just trying to figure out what's happening and trying to get more information. But while this is all happening, it's very much a domestic thriller. Tensions arise, there's suspense in some different areas. It's very much this couple trying to put all the pieces together and kind of figure out what actually is going on. I felt like it was a little bit slower to get into. I would still recommend it, especially if if you really enjoy domestic thrillers, because I really love B.A. Paris's The Therapist. That book, amazing. Moving on. The next book that I read this month was The Wild Huntress by Emily Lloyd Jones. This has been on my TBR list for a while. I really love this author's writing, mainly because she does such a great job doing young adult fantasy, and it's always a standalone. Like, she can fit an entire fantasy world within one book, and I actually feel satisfied by the end. This one I ended up rating 4.5 stars. I was obsessed with this one. I think this is my favorite of hers so far. I think this is her third book that she's written, but I devoured this book when I was reading it. This fantasy world follows 3 different people. You're following this girl who was touched by magic as a child, and so one of her eyes she sees like normal, and then the other eye can see monsters and creatures that like a normal person would not be able to see, a human would not be able to see. So she's actually a monster hunter, and that's like her skill set. You're also following a prince from a nearby kingdom as well, and he actually was raised by monsters. He was stolen as a child and raised by this terrifying creature, and so he learned how to be ruthless and cunning. But from first glance, like when you meet his character, he is like one of the sweetest and most empathetic and kind people ever. So it's kind of crazy that he has that extra side to him. And then the third person you're following, he is a cousin of the throne, so he's not necessarily in line to inherit the throne or anything, but he has a lot of siblings, and basically his older brother is in line to take over the throne, but his brother is very ruthless and he's just a horrible person, and he is trying to stop him from being the next in line. And he's more of a trickster. He's more of the liar and the charming trickster in his kingdom. I think it's every 5 years maybe, this Fae King and this Mortal King end up hosting this hunt that's out in these dangerous woods. People are invited to this hunt, and no one quite knows what you're hunting or what the hunt is all about until you get there, and once you're in, then you know. All 3 of our characters end up in this wild hunt. They are each trying to win for different reasons. I was just hooked from the very beginning. Each of the characters' perspectives were so fascinating to learn about, and I truly did care about every single one of them, and her writing style is just so bingeable. I cannot recommend this author enough. The next book that I read, I actually listened to this one as an audiobook, and that is Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. I actually was reading this book for a book club that I'm in. This month was cozy fantasy. I am not a big cozy fantasy reader. I don't personally love cozy fantasy. Also, I feel like that's something you have to be in the mood for. It's not necessarily something that I'm craving ever. It's like if I need a comforting read, then I'll pick up a cozy book. Also, I feel like cozy fantasy is something that I would want to read more so in the fall than like the spring, summertime. And that definitely affected my rating for this book. I ended up giving this book 2 stars. Milo and Murphy are wrestling right at the bottom of this stand. Might get a little rocky for you guys. And also, like I said, I listened to this as an audiobook. I do think that the narrator did a really great job with this story and with the 2 characters. You're following 2 different women. One is a mage, and that's one of the things that I didn't really understand in this book. I felt like it didn't go much into her magic. She's like known as this all-powerful mage, and the other girl, oh my gosh, the other girl is actually like one of the head guards for the queen in this kingdom. The story starts out with both of them running away together to open up a book and tea shop, and that's where the coziness comes in. It didn't really feel like there was never any high stakes situations. Like, it would talk about, I guess, high stakes, but it was never treated as high stakes. It always was treated as, oh, you know, they're gonna be fine. It never felt like there was anything to lose. All of the emotions that I felt for this book, I felt like I was just like constantly in a stagnant line. I never felt like any highs or lows while I was reading this. So that's why I'm at a 2 star. I know that cozy is great, and I know this author is great, and she's very well known, so this is kind of an unpopular opinion, but I just don't think it's for me. I don't think cozy fantasy is necessarily for me or something that I would naturally pick up or gravitate towards. The next book that I read was Jilted by Vi Keeland. This is a newer romance that I believe came out this month. It's a very easy read. I ended up rating this 3.5 stars. It did not involve a lot of brain power. One of the things that drew me to this book was the fact that someone said it is a mixture of 27 Dresses and The Hating Game, which I love both of those things. So I was really excited going into this book. I feel like I had a lot of expectations for the story. Our main character, she was left at the altar, so she has a lot of negative feelings when it comes to love and marriage, but she actually works for a bride magazine, so that's kind of a little tricky in her situation. She ends up filling in for a bridesmaid at a wedding that she's covering for this magazine, and while she's there, she meets this really attractive groomsman, and they kind of hit it off, and then later she finds out that that is actually her boss's son. So it quickly becomes very messy. Her boss ends up teaming them up together for a summer series where they're going to be covering like like 5 or 6 weddings. They have to work together. So it's a very fun and just happy, light read. I wouldn't say there was anything groundbreaking about this story. I did enjoy it for what it was. However, I do think that it focused a little too much on their relationship. It felt like they got together way too soon. I felt like the tension could have been amped up a little bit. Like there could have been more yearning. And the next book that I read was The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. I loved it. I gave this 5 stars. This was so good. Rachel Gillig, she wrote the One Dark Window duology. I loved those books as well. I actually also have the originals and I have special editions for both of those books. And I was actually able to go to an author event with Rachel Gillig in St. Louis and got to listen to her talk about this book. It was actually like right after I finished this book. I have to say, if you are able to read a book before going to the author event, try to do that because it just makes it so much better, because when you hear about her process of writing her characters and the thought behind the world building and everything, it hits so much harder when you actually know what she's talking about and what she actually wrote. It follows a diviner. So in this world, the magic system is kind of interesting. There are these 6 omens and they're kind of like gods or goddesses, and they each have their own like artifact, their own like physical object. Our main character, she is one of 6 diviners, and their job, their role in this kingdom is to drown. And while they're drowning, they actually have these very vivid, intense dreams about these omens, and they are able to tell people's fortunes or futures based on these omens and what their objects do in the dream. From the very beginning, our main character, she's very sheltered. All she really knows is being a diviner. She's been kept in this castle on the hill pretty much her whole life. She was saved as a child and brought in to be a diviner. So it's really all she knows, and this magic system is all she knows, this religion essentially that she has. This very young king comes with his knights and to get his fortune told, and one of his knights ends up kind of like scoffing at the whole divining stuff. He doesn't believe in it and he thinks it's all a joke and basically tells her that to her face. They end up making this bet and she ends up getting to read his future. Well, when she starts to dream, she sees nothing, and so kind of puts her whole world upside down. After this happens, each of the other diviners that she considers sisters start disappearing one by one. Every day a different diviner disappears and she has no clue where they went. It starts this journey, this quest where she gets the help of this knight to travel around the world to try to find her sisters. The writing is so atmospheric, it's gothic fantasy, and the romance was just so good, and I feel like it was just so well done. I really came to love every single one of the characters in this book. I'm really excited for the second book. When I was at the author event, Rachel actually said that she's finished with the first draft of the second book, so that's really exciting. Not that we're gonna get it anytime soon, but the fact that she's done writing it and just has to start the edit process, that's really cool. The next book I read was The Wrong Heart by Jennifer Hartman. This is the author of Still Beating, and I read Still Beating I think last fall and I loved it. I ended up giving it like 4.5 stars or something like that. Her writing is just so incredibly bingeable, and one of the things about this author is she talks about very triggering and traumatic subjects, so definitely look at trigger warnings before reading any of her books. But she does such a great job showing the healing process of not only like in the actual moment, like showing someone overcoming something so traumatic and horrible. Milo, do you have to play with that right now? But she's able to show the healing process after it happens. This story follows a grieving widow, and she starts communicating with the man who got her husband's heart. Her husband was an organ donor, and so when he died, this man got her husband's heart, and she started communicating with him. She starts going to a kind of like a suicide prevention group and meets other people who are there also grieving and struggling with thoughts of self-harm or thoughts of suicide as well. It is very heavy. I will say that, so heavy. So do not read it if you get triggered by that content. But when she's at group, she ends up meeting this very broody and moody man who is also dealing with a lot of issues on his own, and they start kind of connecting and on like a deeper level. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I think what really made me bring it down a star was because our main guy character, I don't know why she liked him. He was horrible majority of the time. And yeah, he had his moments, and I know that he was struggling with a lot of issues on his own, but I just felt like he gave her no reason to keep putting in effort for him because he put 0 effort in for her. I really loved our main character because she was such a positive person and such a ray of light for others. And so I really enjoyed reading about her character and reading and learning about her journey after losing her husband and trying to find love again, trying to find hope again. But yeah, the guy just kind of ruined it a little bit. I still enjoyed the story. It was very bingeable. I do think this author does a great job writing a very bingeable story. And the next book that I actually listened to as an audiobook that is so happy together, I ended up giving this audiobook 3 stars. And the reason reason why is I felt like it was a little slow in some parts. It definitely dragged in a good portion of this book, but it follows a girl who was broken up with, and it's like for those who get broken up with and they have a hard time letting go of that past relationship, she ends up kind of almost stalking her ex-boyfriend and seeing him starting a new relationship. She ends up becoming friends with his new girlfriend, and the girlfriend doesn't realize who she is, and so it turns very messy very quick. The whole time you're in the head of this girl who is a stalker essentially, and she's so good at rationalizing things in her head. You know, she doesn't actually know him or love him, or he's only with her because of this reason. Like, she holds out hope, and it's really interesting being in that head or in that mindset and that thought process. It definitely had some twists and turns. It was a little bit predictable in some areas, but it definitely takes you on a wild ride, the second portion of the book. And the next book that I read, I actually read this because I saw how much hype it was getting online, and I had to be a part of that conversation. And that is Silver Elite by Dani Francis. When this first came out, I was really excited about it. I almost bought it right when I saw it, like on release day, but I held off for some reason. And then I started hearing all this hype, and I was like, oh, I should have bought that from the beginning. My thoughts on this book, I will say I have mixed feelings about it. The best way for me to describe this book is telling you it's kind of like Divergent, like that world where you're in, and same with Fourth Wing, you're in this academy and you're training and fighting, and it's deadly and it's very harsh and hard to get in. It's very similar to Divergent in that way, but it has magic. And when I say it has magic, it differs from Fourth Wing because there's no dragons. People have their own magic because this world, some different bloodlines have evolved because there was some sort of, like, I want to say toxic warfare that happened, and it changed people's brain chemistry. And so there is a percentage of the world of humans who have mind powers. They can do telepathy and projection and get into other people's brains and see like what they're thinking. And some that are even more powerful can actually force people to do things that they want them to do. And our main character, she is one of those people, but this group of people is being hunted. She is a part of this like rebel group. She ends up getting recruited to train to be a part of this Silver Elite task force, which is in enemy territory. She's surrounded by regular humans who want her dead the entire book. I enjoyed this book. I think I'm settling on a 4.25 stars. I'm not giving it a full 4.5 because of the ending. The ending wasn't as exciting as I was hoping or expecting. I definitely will read the next book when it eventually comes out, because I am curious to see where this world is going to take us. But I felt like the ending left me with a lot of questions, which I think is great, but a lot of the ending just didn't make sense to me. Her main character, she was very sassy and stood up for herself. One of the things I didn't love about her though is she's very conceited. She knows she's strong. She knows she's good at shooting a gun. She knows she's good at what she does. I don't know. It kind of bothered me because she was like pretending the entire time that she's weak and can't do all these things when secretly she can. And I know it was like a survival tactic and whatever, but she was just very conceited in general. So lots of mixed feelings on this book. I know there's a lot of controversy about the author and it being a pen name and it's like some popular, well-known author, whatever. Yeah, it'd be cool to know who it was, but also clearly they want privacy and did it this way for a reason. So I'm just gonna enjoy Dani Francis's books. And the next book that I read was Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. I really enjoyed this book. This is the second book I've read by this author. I loved it. I think I'm settling on a 4.5 stars for this book. I didn't love it as much as Beartown. Beartown I gave 5 stars. This one's getting 4.5 because it's a very different vibe than Beartown. Both of them are definitely character studies. Beartown was so emotional from the very beginning. It really gripped me. I fell in love with the town that you are reading about in Beartown. And this one, I definitely loved all of the characters by the end of the book, but you start out hating them. And that's very interesting. And it's also very comical the way this book is written. You start out hating every single one of these characters, but then by the end you love them. And I almost cried. I basically went through every single emotion there was to have while reading this book, but it just didn't hit quite as hard as Beartown. So that's why it's going to be a 4.5 for me. There is this hostage situation. This bank robber takes a group of people hostage at this open house, like apartment viewing, and you're learning about how they got here. Each of these characters has a different sort of backstory. There's a mystery you're also trying to solve during the story. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and it was very interesting the way he wrote the style of this book, because you're getting the police interviews after the hostage situation while also getting character background, and you're also jumping back into the hostage situation and what's happening in the moment. So it's just like a lot of different things happening, but it definitely kept me engaged the entire book. And that is gonna be it for my May wrap up. I actually had so much fun reading this month, and I got to read some of my favorite authors. I got to read some new authors that I am now obsessed with. I am so excited for the month of June. I have a lot of really fun, exciting summer books that I'm gonna be getting into. I've already started collecting and setting aside books that I want to read this summer. And my next video will most likely be my summer TBR video, so keep a lookout for that. And I'm really excited to talk about some new books, especially going into a new season. That's just very, very exciting. It's a different vibe altogether, and I cannot wait. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Happy reading. Bye.